During the 2022 Daytona 500, I saw a lot of fans on both Instagram and Twitter complaining about the way that Fox handled the broadcast. And I gotta completely agree. I think that Fox broadcasting Daytona 500 was absolutely terrible. There were so many commercials, so many mess ups with the camera angles, and they missed so many good parts of racing. A lot of cautions were missed, a lot of action. They almost missed a flip on the backstretch early in the race. How do you miss a flip? And all this really got me thinking. I thought back to a lot of Fox races over the last couple of seasons, and they have just been absolutely littered with commercials left and right and left and right. And you have Mike Joy, Jeff Gordon sometimes, even though he's not in the booth right now, and Clint Boyer. It just seems like they don't know what to talk about. At one point, it just seems like they run out of ideas to talk about, cut to a commercial break. Then when you get back, they run out of ideas to talk about again, and then they cut right to another one. The coverage as a whole has been so sloppy, and that's really just what I want to touch on today. But first, I just want to talk about the commercials. So it seemed like every 5 laps there was a commercial. Like, I kid you not, you'd get 5 laps of green flag racing, and then you go right to a commercial break, come out of it, just for them to go crank it up, and then they'd go right back to a commercial break. So Fox actually missed the very first caution that came out with Kaz Grala losing a tire, I believe on the back straightaway, because, again, they were in commercial break. And then the exact same thing happened later with Justin Haley when he lost a tire, and guess who was in commercial break again? So I can pay them a little bit of slack here, I guess. I mean, it's hard to judge when a caution's going to come out, especially at a track like Daytona or Talladega. You can't really judge when the caution's going to come out. But it would have been helpful if we got at least, some side-by-sides instead of full-screen commercials during green flag runs. I rarely see NBC doing this anymore nowadays. But Fox, it just seems like as the years go on and on, it seems like they're doing more and more full-screen commercials. And then when the first big wreck of the day happened where Harrison Burton took a flip, Fox missed the flip. They didn't even acknowledge or say anything about the flip until they showed the replay. They didn't even show the flip when it was actually happening. They were too focused on a bumper camera from, I believe, Eric Jones. That is absolutely inexcusable. There's no way that you can miss a flip that bad on the backstretch. They didn't even show it. For all we know, we just saw Harrison Burton's car wrecked, and then they showed a replay about 2 minutes later, and it showed that he flipped. No one knew. No one had an idea because they didn't show it. That's absolutely inexcusable, especially for your biggest race of the year, which is the Daytona 500. And then later in the race, another caution came out collecting drivers like Tyler Reddick and Martin Truex Jr. And wouldn't you know, the second that wreck started to happen, Fox was cutting away to another commercial break, not even a minute after being in one. Like, I swear, I literally counted. It was less than a minute after being in a commercial break, they were cutting to another. Thankfully, they did get out of the commercial break and show us, the wreck. But they almost missed another wreck. If they showed that commercial break 20 seconds earlier, then we would have missed another big caution. I don't understand how Fox is doing this and how they're okay with this. They have to be aware of what they're doing. There's so many people complaining on social media. It did get a little bit better towards the end of the race, though, as in stage 3, there were really only one, I believe, full screen commercial break. Everything else was just side by side. But that's what it should be like for the whole race. That's what NBC does. NBC only does full screen commercials during the caution breaks and stage breaks. They never do any green flag full screen commercials because in a sport like racing, there's so much that you can miss. In almost any sport, you don't really see too many full screen commercials mid-game. You're not going to be watching the Super Bowl and then you see Tom Brady snap the ball and then immediately go to commercial break. That's just not going to happen. But you do get breaks in between plays in football, and you do get a lot of timeouts in sports like basketball. And then you have sports like baseball where the game itself just takes a while. But in NASCAR, it's not like that. In NASCAR, it's always going. There's always something happening on the track, whether it's a pass, a crash. There's always something, and there's always a new story to tell. That's why green flag commercials do not work in NASCAR. You can't have a full screen commercial, not side by side or anything, in a NASCAR or any motorsport race. But that's enough of me ranting on the commercials. I also need to talk about the fact that Fox just blatantly misses big moments. In stage 1, they barely even showed us a clip of a last lap pass for the lead. And then again, they completely just missed the flip. Later in the race, Daniel Suarez was on the apron smoking, and they didn't even mention it. They didn't even say his name. They just said that there's a car smoking on the apron. They didn't tell us who it was or anything. I found out from some people on Twitter who were attending the race, though, that it was Daniel Suarez. But that is just absolutely inexcusable on Fox's end. You have the Daytona 500, the biggest race of the year, millions of people watching, over 4 million. And yet you screw up this bad every single year. Fox used to be the golden standard. Everyone used to want to be like Fox's coverage. But over the years, it just got worse and worse and worse to the point where right now it's just inexcusable. It's so bad. I really can't wait enough for NBC to take over in the second half of the year. So as everyone knows, in the duels, you do have to race your way in if you are a non-charter team. But it got to a point where it was too much of the day. Fox was constantly missing big moments in the duels. They really just did not care about what was going on up front. They missed a lot of lead changes, a lot of good battles, so that they could show us the guys who are running 25th. And also in, I believe, the second duel race itself, after them showing the 25th place battle all day, guess what they did? On the last lap, they didn't even touch on it. They touched on it after the race was over. There was a last lap pass coming to the checkered flag for Kaz Grala to transfer into the Daytona 500 over J.J. Yaley. And they barely even showed it. They showed it on a replay after the race. They didn't even mention the fact. The second that the leader should have took the checkered flag, they should have immediately cut to the battle. That's what NBC does in playoff races when there's a playoff spot on the line. It's the exact same thing. I really don't understand how Fox can mess up this bad during the biggest weekend of the NASCAR season. And also, I don't really feel like Tony Stewart was the best in the booth, but I don't really blame him. It was his second ever race, including the Clash, commentating for a NASCAR Cup Series race. But I am not looking forward to Matt Kenseth in the booth next race at Fontana. Yeah, I love Matt Kenseth, but he's not the type of driver I want to see in the booth. Matt Kenseth is a very sarcastic, very quiet guy. He doesn't talk a lot, doesn't really speak his mind. I don't really feel like that's going to go over well in the booth. And then they have Danica Patrick, of course, the next two races. And I just feel like watching the XRX series, Danica was just annoying. Like, at times, she was just annoying. She didn't know when to shut up. She just talked way too much. But I did not like Jeff Gordon in the booth anyway. I was not a fan of Jeff Gordon. But again, I'm just waiting until NBC comes back for the second half of the year because they are just doing so much of a better job. But tell me what you guys think in the comments about Fox's coverage of the Daytona 500. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What do you think about NBC's coverage? Is NBC doing a better job than Fox? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.